ocean is a vast and unforgiving expanse, where the line between the sky and the sea often blurs into an endless gray void. There exists a region in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean that has swallowed ships and airplanes without leaving a single trace of wreckage or a solitary clue. It is a place where compasses spin wildly, and the laws of physics seem to bend under the weight of an unseen force. This area is roughly bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, creating a triangle of doom that has baffled scientists and sailors for generations. The silence here is heavy, and the water holds secrets that are darker than the deepest trenches found on the ocean floor. The legend of the Bermuda Triangle is not a modern invention born of sensational headlines, but a mystery that stretches back to the earliest days of exploration. Christopher Columbus himself reported strange lights dancing on the horizon and erratic compass readings. As he sailed through these waters in 1492, he wrote in his logs about a great flame of fire that crashed into the sea and terrified his crew, who believed they were sailing off the edge of the world. These waters have always been treacherous, but the stories became more sinister as technology advanced, and metal ships began to vanish just as easily as wooden caravels. The dread associated with this stretch of ocean is palpable. In 1881, the schooner Ellen Austin encountered a derelict ship drifting aimlessly in the Sargasso Sea, located within the treacherous triangle. The captain of the Ellen Austin sent a prize crew aboard to salvage the vessel and sail it to New York, but a sudden squall separated the two ships. When the Ellen Austin spotted the derelict vessel days later, the prize crew had vanished completely, leaving the ship deserted once again. The captain tried a second time, sending another crew to man the ghost ship, but they too disappeared into the mist without explanation. It was as if the ocean itself was hungry and demanded a sacrifice from anyone daring enough to claim what belonged to the deep. One of the most perplexing disappearances in the history of the United States Navy occurred in March 1918, involving the massive collier United States ship Cyclops. The ship was a titan of the seas, carrying over 300 crew members and thousands of tons of manganese ore. It departed from Barbados with clear weather and calm seas, expecting a routine journey to Baltimore. The Captain Lieutenant Commander George Worley was an experienced sailor who knew the dangers of the ocean, yet he never sent a distress signal. The ship simply ceased to exist somewhere north of Barbados, leaving behind no oil slick, no debris, and no bodies. It remains the single largest non-combat loss of life in United States naval history. The disappearance of the United States ship Cyclops sparked rumors of mutiny and enemy submarines, but no German logs ever confirmed an attack on the vessel. Some believed that a giant octopus or rogue wave had dragged the ship to the bottom in seconds. Others whispered about the erratic behavior of Captain Worley, who was known to walk the deck in his long underwear and hat carrying a cane. The mystery deepened as years passed without a single clue surfacing from the abyss. The ship had simply sailed into oblivion, taking over 300 souls with it into the crushing darkness. It was a chilling reminder that steel and steam are no match for the unknown forces waiting in the triangle. The year 1921 brought another ghost ship into the lore of the Bermuda Triangle with the discovery of the Carol A. Deering. This 5-masted schooner was found run aground on Diamond Shoals off the coast of North Carolina, with its sails set and lifeboats missing. When the Coast Guard boarded the vessel, they found a scene of eerie abandonment that chilled them to the bone. Food was laid out on the galley stove, as if the crew were about to eat, and the navigation equipment was gone. The only living creature left on board was a 6-toed cat that prowled the empty deck. The fate of the crew remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the maritime world. Investigations into the Carol A. Deering revealed a tangled web of bootlegging rumors and Soviet piracy, but no solid evidence ever materialized to explain the vanishing. The Federal Bureau of Investigation looked into the case for months, but every lead turned into a dead end. It was as if the men had been plucked from the deck by an invisible hand, leaving their personal belongings and the ship itself intact. The Diamond Shoals are known as the graveyard of the Atlantic, but the Deering added a supernatural layer to the danger. The ship stood as a silent monument to the power of the triangle to strip away life while leaving the vessel as a hollow shell. 4 years later, in 1925, the steamship SS Cotopaxi vanished, while en route from Charleston, South Carolina to Havana, Cuba. The ship was carrying a cargo of coal and a crew of 32 men when it sent a distress signal reporting that the hold was taking on water. After that transmission, the radio went silent and the ship was never heard from again. For decades, the fate of the Cotopaxi was a complete mystery, fueling legends of alien abductions and sea monsters. The ship had sailed into a storm and simply evaporated from the surface of the ocean. It would take nearly a century before explorers would find the rusted remains of a wreck that matched the description. The most famous incident that solidified the terrifying reputation of the Bermuda Triangle began on a sunny afternoon in December 1945. 5 Navy bombers known as Flight 19 took off from the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a routine training mission. The squadron was led by Lieutenant Charles Taylor, an experienced pilot with thousands of flight hours under his belt. The weather was perfect, and the mood was light as the 14 airmen soared over the turquoise waters. They were scheduled to conduct a bombing run and return to base in time for dinner. But the ocean had other plans for them. This mission would mark the beginning of the modern legend. Trouble started when Lieutenant Charles Taylor reported that his compasses were malfunctioning, and he could no longer determine his direction. The calm voice of the flight leader grew increasingly anxious as he described the ocean looking wrong and the islands not matching the charts. The other pilots in the squadron tried to help, but their compasses were also spinning wildly or giving contradictory readings. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the water and disorienting the pilots even further. They were flying blind over an ocean that seemed to change shape and color beneath them. The panic in their voices was recorded by the control tower back in Fort Lauderdale. As darkness swallowed the Atlantic, the radio transmissions from Flight 19 became fragmented and terrifying to hear. The pilots argued about which direction to fly, with some wanting to head west toward the setting sun, and others following Taylor, who believed they were over the Florida Keys. The fuel gauges dropped lower with every passing minute of indecision. Taylor was heard ordering the squadron to tighten their formation as the weather deteriorated and the seas began to rise. The once calm waters had turned into a churning cauldron of white water and high waves. The fear was palpable as the realization set in that they were lost in a void with no way home. The ground control station in Fort Lauderdale could only listen helplessly as the signal from the 5 planes grew fainter and more distorted. The last chilling words heard from the squadron were a command to ditch the planes when the first one ran out of fuel. They were going down together into the dark, heaving ocean. There was no crash reported and no explosions seen by any ships in the area. The 5 bombers simply glided into the water and were swallowed whole by the night. 14 men had vanished in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only static on the radio and a mystery that would never be solved. The horror of that night did not end with the loss of Flight 19, as the Navy immediately launched a massive search and rescue operation. A PBM Martin Mariner seaplane with a crew of 13 men took off to hunt for the lost bombers in the rough seas. The Mariner was a flying gas tank known for its long range and durability, making it the perfect aircraft for the job. It lifted off into the black sky and radioed its position a few minutes later. That was the last time anyone ever heard from the rescue plane. It vanished just as completely as the 5 bombers it was sent to find, adding 13 more souls to the count. A merchant ship in the area reported seeing a massive fireball in the sky at the exact time and location where the Martin Mariner disappeared. The explosion illuminated the dark ocean for a brief moment before fading back into the gloom. No wreckage was ever recovered, and no bodies were found despite a search effort that covered hundreds of thousands of square miles. In a single night, 27 men and 6 aircraft had been erased from existence. The Navy Board of Inquiry stated that the men of Flight 19 had flown into the unknown. The Bermuda Triangle had claimed its most significant victory, and the world took notice. The disappearance of Flight 19 birthed the term Bermuda Triangle and sparked a frenzy of theories ranging from magnetic anomalies to time warps. Writers and researchers began to dig into the past, looking for patterns in the losses of ships and planes in the region. They found that the area had a long history of unexplained events that defied logical explanation. The triangle became a zone of fear where travelers would hold their breath until they had safely crossed the invisible boundary. The ocean here seemed to possess a sentient malice that actively hunted those who dared to traverse it. In 1948, a commercial airliner known as the Star Tiger vanished while flying from the Azores to Bermuda. The plane was carrying 25 passengers and 6 crew members, including a World War II hero named Air Marshal Sir Arthur Cunningham. The flight encountered strong headwinds, but the radio operator reported that everything was normal shortly before landing. The plane never arrived at the airport, and no distress signal was ever sent. Search teams scoured the ocean for days, but found absolutely nothing. The Star Tiger had flown into a cloud and never came out, leaving the world to wonder what could snatch a plane from the sky without a sound. Less than a year later, another plane from the same airline, called the Star Ariel, disappeared in nearly identical circumstances. It was flying from Bermuda to Jamaica in perfect weather, with clear visibility and calm seas. The pilot radioed that he was changing frequencies, and then the plane vanished from the airwaves forever. Over 20 people were on board, including young children and experienced travelers. The investigations into both the Star Tiger and Star Ariel concluded that the cause of the disappearances was unresolved. The official reports admitted that there was no logical reason for the planes to fall from the sky. The mystery continued into the 1960s with the disappearance of 2 United States Air Force stratotankers on a routine mission. The jets were flying in formation across the Atlantic when they simply dropped off the radar screens. Debris was eventually found, but it was located hundreds of miles away from where the planes were last tracked. The wreckage suggested a mid-air collision, but the radar logs showed no other aircraft in the vicinity. It was as if the planes had collided with a phantom object or had been ripped apart by a force that could not be detected by modern instruments. One of the most terrifying accounts comes from a pilot named Bruce Jernon, who claims to have survived the deadly grip of the triangle in 1970. He was flying a small plane with his father and a business associate when he encountered a strange lenticular cloud that seemed to be alive. The cloud grew rapidly and engulfed his plane, creating a tunnel that Jernan felt compelled to fly through. Inside the tunnel, he described seeing strange electronic flashes and feeling a sensation of weightlessness. The instruments on his dashboard went haywire, and the white fog clung to the wings of his aircraft. Bruce Jernan reported that the tunnel seemed to be shrinking, and he pushed the plane to its limit to escape the closing jaws of the cloud. When he finally burst out the other side, he found himself flying over Miami Beach. The terrifying part was that the flight should have taken 75 minutes, but he had arrived in only 47 minutes. He believed he had traveled through a time warp or a wormhole that had propelled him forward in space and time. His story is one of the few first-hand accounts of the electronic fog that many believe is responsible for the disappearances. The phenomenon of electronic fog is a recurring theme in the stories of those who have encountered the strange forces of the triangle. Survivors describe a gray mist that appears out of nowhere and clings to the ship or plane, disabling all electronic equipment. The fog seems to move with the vessel and creates a sense of disorientation and dread. Compasses spin and radios emit nothing but static, cutting the crew off from the rest of the world. It is a suffocating blanket that blinds the traveler and hides the terrifying reality of what lies within the mist. In 1967, a luxury cabin cruiser named the Witchcraft left Miami for a short trip to view the Christmas lights from the water. The owner, Dan Burak, was an experienced yachtsman who knew the waters well. He radioed the Coast Guard to report a minor vibration in the propeller and asked for a tow purely as a precaution. He stated that the boat was not in any immediate danger and gave his exact location near a buoy less than a mile from shore. The Coast Guard arrived at the scene within 19 minutes, but the Witchcraft was gone. There was no trace of the boat or its 2 passengers. The search for the Witchcraft was extensive, covering hundreds of square miles of ocean floor and surface water. The water at the location was shallow enough for divers to search, yet no wreck was ever found. The boat was equipped with life jackets, flares, and a distress beacon, but none were used. It was as if a hole had opened up in the water and swallowed the boat whole in less than 20 minutes. The suddenness of the disappearance is what makes the Witchcraft case so chilling. One moment they were safe and waiting for help, and the next they were gone forever. The lighthouse keepers at Great Isaac Key also fell victim to the mystery of the triangle in 1969. The lighthouse stands on a small island in the Bahamas and was manned by 2 keepers who were responsible for maintaining the light. When a supply boat arrived to check on them, the island was deserted. The lighthouse was in perfect order, and there were no signs of a struggle or a storm. The 2 men had simply vanished, leaving the light burning as a beacon to no one. Locals believe the island is cursed, and the spirits of the lost keepers still wander the rocky shores. The SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a large tanker carrying molten sulfur, disappeared in 1963 with 39 crew members on board. The ship was known to be in poor condition, with frequent fires breaking out in the sulfur tanks. However, the final radio message from the captain was routine and gave no indication of trouble. The ship vanished in the Straits of Florida, and only a few life jackets and pieces of debris were ever recovered. The Coast Guard investigation suggested that the ship may have exploded, but the lack of a distress call or major debris field left the case open to speculation. Theories about the Bermuda Triangle often point to the existence of massive methane hydrate fields on the ocean floor. These pockets of gas can erupt, suddenly creating giant bubbles that reduce the density of the water. A ship sailing over such a bubble would instantly lose buoyancy and drop like a stone to the bottom of the ocean. The gas could also rise into the atmosphere and ignite in the engines of passing airplanes, causing them to explode. This natural explanation offers a terrifyingly plausible reason for the sudden disappearances, but it does not explain the strange lights or the electronic fog. Another theory involves the presence of rogue waves that can reach heights of up to 100 feet. These walls of water can appear without warning in the open ocean and smash ships to pieces in seconds. The unique geography of the Bermuda Triangle, with its deep trenches and strong currents, makes it a prime location for these freak waves. A rogue wave could easily overwhelm a massive vessel like the Cyclops or the Marine Sulphur Queen, leaving no time for a distress call. The ocean is a violent place, and these waves are its most destructive weapon. Some researchers look to the past and the legend of Atlantis to explain the anomalies in the region. The discovery of the Bimini Rhoda rock formation off the coast of North Bimini Island has fueled speculation that it is a remnant of the lost city. Believers claim that the advanced crystals or energy sources of Atlantis are still active on the ocean floor, interfering with modern navigation systems. They argue that the strange lights and magnetic disturbances are the result of ancient technology that is malfunctioning beneath the waves. It is a romantic and terrifying notion that the past is reaching out to destroy the present. The Sargasso Sea, which overlaps with the Bermuda Triangle, adds another layer of creepiness to the region. It is a vast area of calm water, filled with thick mats of floating seaweed that can trap small vessels. In the days of sail ships, would often become becalmed in the Sargasso Sea for weeks, running out of food and water, while the crew went mad from the isolation. The seaweed hides the wreckage of centuries of maritime history, creating a floating graveyard. The silence of the Sargasso Sea is broken only by the creaking of rotting wood and the whispers of the doomed. Psychological factors also play a significant role in the legends of the Triangle. The power of suggestion can cause pilots and sailors to panic at the first sign of trouble, leading to fatal errors. The reputation of the area creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where fear clouds judgment and turns minor malfunctions into disasters. This phenomenon is known as the Hutchinson effect, named after a Canadian inventor who studied electromagnetic fields. The idea is that the mind itself can be influenced by the environment, causing hallucinations and a loss of time. Despite the scientific theories and logical explanations, the disappearances continue to occur with alarming regularity. Small planes and pleasure boats vanish every year in the Triangle, often without a trace. The vastness of the ocean makes it easy to hide the evidence, and the strong Gulf Stream current washes away debris in a matter of hours. The Bermuda Triangle remains a black hole on the map, where the normal rules of travel do not apply. It is a place where one must respect the power of the unseen or risk becoming another statistic. The stories of the Bermuda Triangle serve as a grim reminder of our vulnerability in the face of nature. We build massive ships and advanced aircraft believing we have conquered the elements, but the ocean always proves us wrong. The vanished vessels and unseen forces are a testament to the limits of human knowledge. There are corners of this world that are not meant to be tamed, and secrets that are best left undisturbed. The Triangle watches and waits for the next traveler who is foolish enough to drop their guard. As night falls over the Atlantic, the ocean looks much the same as it did when Columbus first saw the strange lights 5 centuries ago. The water is dark and deep, concealing the bones of thousands who have been lost to the void. The electronic fog may still be prowling the clouds, waiting to envelope a lonely pilot. The methane bubbles may be shifting deep below, ready to rise and swallow a ship. The mystery is not solved, and the danger is not gone. The Bermuda Triangle remains an open grave waiting to be filled. The dread lingers long after the stories are told, because the ocean is right there waiting at the edge of the shore. Every time a ship sails out of port or a plane takes off into the blue, there is a chance it will cross that invisible line. The voices of the lost crew of Flight 19 still echo in the static of the radio frequencies. The empty decks of the ghost ships still drift in the fog. The unseen forces are real, and they are hungry for more.